to have you here.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So Hope is behind the camera. I'll wave my hand at you. I'll be our camera person today, but I'll help answer some questions too. And then this is Emily. She is one of our zoo educators. So take it away, Emily.
Hello, everybody. So my name's Emily. Like Hope said, I'm an educator here at the zoo, which basically means my job is to talk to awesome people like you and teach you about animals here at the zoo and around the world. So today we have about 5 animals that we want to talk to you about in person, and then we're going to go meet a couple of our other guys here in the zoo. So these first 5 animals are actually really special because they're not normally on display. They are specifically for education programs, which means you guys are pretty darn special to get to see them. So the first one we have is a little bit of a creepy-crawly. Give me just a minute and I'll go get her. Good morning.
Sometimes it takes just a second to work with animals and get them out.
And she's a little grumpy because I woke her up. I say she's probably a boy. All right, you ready? This is Jackie. She or he, I think it's actually a he, is a Texas brown tarantula. So they're actually native to Texas. They're not the biggest tarantula in the world, but they're definitely not the smallest. And girls tend to be much bigger than boys. The reason we think Jackie here is a boy is because he's got a really small abdomen, which is his back part of the body. So Jackie was actually found just a few feet away from the spot we're standing right now. Some summer campers found him, and we decided that he was going to live with us so we can teach you guys about tarantulas. So he looks pretty scary, and you may make yourselves a little nervous thinking about spiders, but honestly, he's quite harmless. All spiders are venomous, but most of them are completely harmless. Their venom is not strong enough to hurt anybody. Tarantulas are one of those. I'm not worried about him biting me, and if he did, it would just be a little bit uncomfortable. I wouldn't be worried. So tarantulas are pretty cool in that they are one of the few hairy kinds of spiders, as you can kind of see on his abdomen. He's lost some of his hairs, but he's still got a lot of them on there. There's a couple of reasons tarantulas are so hairy. One of them is to help feel around the world. It's easier to feel things when you've got little fingers sticking out and everywhere. The second main reason is as an act of defense. So the first thing they'll do before they bite is they'll flick the hairs at a predator to try and get it to go away. If these little hairs end up in your eyes or your nose, it itches and burns and is really not comfortable. So that's their first line of defense, because biting venom uses a lot of energy. So they want to avoid doing that when they can. So these guys, like I said, they're native to this part of the United States and Mexico, and they can live to be, I think, like 5 years for a male, but they can live to be like 20 or 30 for a female. So the girls can live a lot longer than the boys. That's because they have to have the babies, so it's better if they live a little longer. So we think Jackie here is an adult. We don't know how old he is because he was found in the wild, but we can guess he's maybe a couple years old. So he's kind of an old fella, but I like him. He's a really cool dude. Some people will keep these guys as pets, but you have to be very careful because, like I said, they are venomous, and just like bees, you may be allergic to them. All right. So you may be wondering, why does he have 10 legs? I thought spiders had 8. Well, these 2 tiny ones in very front of him are what, he just pooped on me, look at that, are what's called pedipalps. That is basically just little feelers to help him see the world around him. So he does only have 8 legs, but 2 pedipalps. Fun fact, on a scorpion, the pincers are pedipalps as well. All right, any questions about him? We're gonna do animal question today, I think. Oops. And yes, spider poop does look a lot like bird poop. Any questions on anyone?
No? Okay.
Going
How do you keep them warm in the snow?
Warm in the snow. Well, our animals are very lucky. They live inside. But in the wild, they tend to burrow underground or in little crevices where it's a little bit warmer. And then when it's really sunny, they'll come out in the sun. But our animals, luckily, they live inside all the time in the education department, so they don't have to worry about it. That's one reason Jackie's actually doing really well, because he doesn't have to worry about finding food or being warm or dealing with this cold weather we've just had. He's kind of an old dude.
Any other questions about this tarantula?
Oh, I've got a cool fun fact. So I don't know if you can see it on camera, but at the very end of each of his little toes are two little claws. And they're not claws like you'd see on a dog or a cat, but they're little grabbers. He's very slippery. They're little grabbers. So that's how they can climb really well. These guys can actually climb up walls if they really wanted to.
Somebody just asked how we exercise them.
How we exercise them, that's a great question. Not all of our animals need exercising. For example, Jackie here lives in a terrarium big enough that if he wants to roam around, he can. Otherwise, we'll take him out like we're doing right now and let him crawl around either around us or in a clean environment like a classroom.
And then when we feed him, we'll put mealworms or crickets or little hissing cockroaches in his enclosure, and he gets to hunt kind of like he would in the wild, but he is in a tank, so he's not just loose in the
Yes, he loves to hunt. He's a very good hunter.
All right. Let's go ahead and put Jackie away, and we'll bring out our next animal.
Fantastic.
Good questions, guys.
Yeah.
I hope it's a turtle because I really like turtles. And I also have a lot of questions about everything.
You have a lot of questions about everything. I love questions. So if you have questions, put them in the chat because they come up for me, and I'll do my best to keep track of them, but I'm sure Miss Sarah can help us as well.
This isn't a question about animals, but I have a bunch of questions about other things too. Like, why do your ears help you balance? Or why do giant squids pump for blood?
Those are good questions too.
Yeah, I know
do
that.
love questions.
Those will require much longer answers than we have time for, though, unfortunately.
And that there are more, and why are there more muscles in the body than there are bones in your body?
That's a really cool question. You guys are really smart, huh? Well, I don't know who said I wish it's a turtle, but your wish is granted. He's a little active, so I got to hold him close to my body. This is Summer. He's very excited to be outside today. He loves the sun and the warmth. He is an eastern box turtle. They are native to the United States, so I don't know if we get them here in Texas.
We
very
do
often.
get them here in
We
Texas.
do?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, they're very native to the United States, and then not quite extinct. Not extinct. What's the word I'm looking
They're
for?
vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Mhm.
That's the word I'm looking for. They're not quite endangered, but they're vulnerable, mostly due to habitat loss and the pet trade. So these guys are really common to have as pets because they're so cute and they start off so small and they don't get that big as far as turtles are concerned. However, people who go out into the wild to collect animals for pets, if you don't work at a zoo and you're going to do it like we did with Jackie, they sometimes collect too many. And so they have a problem staying wild in their wild areas.
Somebody asked where we found him. Somebody actually had
That's a great question.
I believe these turtles were
He was
abandoned
found
on the side of the road. Yeah.
In a tank with his friend. His friend's named Quasi, but we're keeping him in the classroom. We like to take turns. So they were just found. Somebody decided they were too much work and just left them on the side of the road. So they're pretty lucky that we found them. Good question. Thank you. I forgot to tell you how we found him.
What does he eat?
What does he eat? Well, turtles are omnivores. That's a big word some of you may have heard of before. It basically means they eat plants and animals. This guy doesn't eat rats or anything. He likes to eat little bugs. His favorite food is mealworms. He's a very good mealworm eater. So turtles, especially box turtles, eat mealworms and crickets and earthworms and pretty much anything other small animals they can find in the wild, as well as plants like fruits, vegetables, and leaves. They tend to eat a little bit more protein when they're young than when they're older. So Quasi here, his favorite food is mealworms, but as he gets older, I'm expecting him to like fruit and vegetables just a little bit more than mealworms. So he's still a little guy. He's, I think, a couple years old.
2.5 now.
2.5. But he can live to be about 20 if he's taken well care of. And he is going to get much bigger than this, maybe like 5 times bigger than this. So he's still a little small right now. And that's another thing you have to worry about if you're going to get a turtle or something as a pet. They start off really small, and then they can get really, really, really big.
Does he eat super worms as well?
Super worms.
He gets a little scared of super worms.
Super worms are almost as big as he is. So sometimes he'll eat like a really small super worm. And when he gets bigger, he may like them a little bit more, but he's not a huge fan of them right now. But that's a great question. One day, maybe he will. He's very, very excited to roam around. I'm having a hard time keeping him still. So you guys see the shell, right? That's like a main characteristic of turtles. Well, did you know that that shell is attached to his bones? So you see that ridge right there? That's going right on top of his spine, and his ribs are attached in here as well. So some people like to say, well, can they take their shells off? And the answer is no. It's attached to their skeleton, so they can't remove it. But if their shell does get injured, they are very good at healing that shell. So even though it's attached to their bones, like if you break a bone, that's not it for your bone, you can heal it. Their shells can heal pretty well as well. But luckily, this guy's not had to deal with that. He's had a pretty healthy life so far. So excited. Any questions on him? Or other turtles?
Why is he called a box turtle?
Why is he called a box turtle? That's a great question. And I actually know the answer to it. So I'm not going to make him do this because that's not very nice. But when he puts his head and his feet in his shell when they're scared, they've got this, sorry, buddy. They've got a little hinge right about here on the bottom of their shell, which is called the plastron. And with box turtles, it'll actually close up a little bit. And so it looks kind of like they're folding themselves into a box.
Oh, and then we had another question as well. Is a turtle
too.
a reptile? Yes, turtles
Yes.
and tortoises are a type of reptile.
Yes, they're what's called testudines, which is a very specific kind of reptile. All right.
Any other questions about the turtle?
He's peed on me too. All of them like to pee on me today. All right. Well, he's getting antsy, so I'm going to go ahead and put him up. That way he stays nice and calm.
And while Emily is putting an animal away and getting another one out, feel free to put some questions in the chat and I will answer them while we wait. If you have any.
If you have any.
The spider was Jackie. What kind of spider was he? Jackie is a Texas brown tarantula. So we get those all over in the Texas Hill Country. I've actually seen quite a few around here at the zoo. They're very common. In the winter, like Emily mentioned, they tend to burrow when it's cold. They have burrows underground. So they tend to hang out there in the winter, but as spring comes and summer comes, we'll start to see them out and about more. How big does the turtle get? The box turtles, they can get to have like a 5 to 6 inch diameter across their shell. So about double the size that Chomper is right now.
All right. So our next friend is also a reptile, but it's not a testudine. It's a squamate, which is a big word to say lizard, basically. He's a lizard.
I know another reptile.
You like reptiles? Is that what you said?
What is the other reptile you know?
It's called, I think it's amphibian. I think it's an amphibian. I forgot, but it's called a Sicilian.
A Sicilian?
Ooh, those are a type of amphibian. So they're actually related to frogs and salamanders, but I'm very glad you know that they exist.
very impressed you know what a Sicilian is. I love Sicilians. We don't have any at this zoo, but you know, maybe one day we might. I don't know. But anyway, this is Bonnie. She is a blue-tongued skink. As you can see from her blue tongue, she has a very good name. So blue-tongued skinks are actually not native to the United States. I'm going to support her tail a little more. They're not native to the United States. They're actually native to Australia and New Guinea and the other islands around there. They're found mostly in grasslands and brushlands and scrublands, and they blend really, really well in to dirt and grass. You can see, judging by her colors and her stripes, that you can imagine if she was put into some brown grass, she would pretty much disappear. And they do. They have a really fantastic camouflage system, which means they blend in really well. So speaking of blending in, you ask, why does she have a bright blue tongue then if she's trying to blend in? Well, that's her defense mechanism. How we talked about shooting off hairs with a tarantula and hiding with a turtle. These guys will flash their tongue at a predator to try and scare them away. Usually in the wild, if something is really brightly colored, that means they're poisonous or venomous, and it means It's a warning system to get the predator to go away. However, she is not venomous or poisonous, but she wants the predators to think that she is, so she pretends that she is.
And somebody asked where we found her.
Oh, yeah.
So somebody donated her to the zoo. She was actually somebody's pet, and they were moving out of state, so they gave her to the zoo. And because of that, we know what her actual birthday is. And Bonnie is actually 22 years old, which is amazing because normally these guys live to be like 20 tops. So she is a very, very old lady.
She's an old lady. A lot of our animals here are a little bit on the older side, which is perfectly fine. That's one of the reasons they live with us. We are their forever home at the zoo. So some of the other animals you're going to see today are also a little bit on the older side. But she's still feisty and she still loves life. So she's got lots of years on her yet, we hope still. Mm-hmm. So you may see when you look at her that her head is kind of arrowhead shaped. And you know, sometimes people will say, oh, if it's got an arrowhead shape, it's venomous. Well, that's not necessarily true. And in fact, in the wild, these guys get mistaken for venomous snakes so often that that's one of the main threats, people killing them because they think they're venomous. So it's always good to know what animals you're going to see in the wild and don't kill them, even if they're venomous or you think they might be. Another cool feature about her is you see how her legs are all stumpy and small. She's obviously not a very fast runner, which is another reason why she needs that tongue to scare the predators away, because she's not going to be able to run away. But her short legs make her really good at burrowing and digging into other animals' burrows. And that's where they spend most of their time, underground and in burrows. So she feels most comfortable when she's dug under her substrate in her hide, and most oftentimes we'll find her digging little holes.
Any questions about Bonnie?
Yeah. So a cool thing about reptiles, most of them anyway, is that they'll shed their skin. Though you may have heard of a snake shedding their skin all in one piece, lizards don't always do that. Sometimes they shed it in small chunks and pieces. And I don't know if you can see it, but her bottom is going to shed any day now because it's starting to feel a little rough.
Somebody asked if she can hear stuff. That's a great question.
See those ears?
Yeah, she doesn't have fleshy outer ears like we do, but those holes on the side of her head, those are actually her ears. And that's another way we can tell that she's a lizard, not a snake. Snakes don't have ear holes.
Yes. So actually, I don't know if they're in Texas, but there's a lizard called a glass lizard, also called a legless lizard. They're lizards without legs. So a lot of people think they're snakes. But when you see one of these in the wild, the best way to tell if it's a legless lizard or a snake is to see if they have ear holes. If they have ear holes like that, then it's not a snake, it's a lizard.
And
same
if
with
they,
eyelids.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Snakes don't have eyelids. They have a layer of scales covering their eyes for protection. Most lizards do. Some geckos don't, but most lizards do. All right. Any questions?
Going once, going twice.
Going 3 times.
All right, we'll go ahead and put Bonnie away. Is it a girl or a boy? Bonnie is a girl. The people that surrendered her to the zoo did have a male as well. His name is Blueberry, and he lives in our reptile house, which is unfortunately closed right now because of COVID.
But when COVID's over, if you guys come and visit us, you'll definitely get to go say hi to him. Okay. So the next animal I'm showing you is another long and slinky one. But this one's going to take a little bit longer because I have to put gloves on. So this is a great transition to talk about how we are handling this horrible pandemic that's going on. A lot of the animals here can actually get sick with COVID. So that's why the keepers, if you come by, you'll see everyone's wearing masks and gloves because we don't want to get them sick either. The next animal we have is one of those that can get sick. So we're going to be extra careful to keep her safe today too. Okay.
What is the spider's name?
The spider's name was Jackie. Our summer campers that found her named her.
So if you guys join summer camps, you may find some animals. So this is Scotty. She is a ferret, a domesticated ferret too. So unlike all the animals that we've seen today, she was actually bred for thousands of years to be a domestic animal, kind of like the dogs and cats you have at home. They're distantly related to what's called, black-footed ferrets, but also polecats in Europe. Black-footed ferrets just live in the United States. They're endangered, but they're slowly coming back from it. You trying to lick me? She's like, oh, I missed you. So Scotty here, she has a friend named Dizzy, who's another ferret, but we only have Scotty here today. Scotty's story was she was surrendered to us as an ex-pet. So I can't remember exactly. How old is Scotty?
Scotty is older than Dizzy. Scotty is about 4 years
about
old.
4? Yeah,
and
Dizzy's
her friend
about 2.
Dizzy is 2 years.
Yes.
Mhm.
So she's another surrendered pet. Excuse me. Social distancing, please. So she's another surrendered pet. She's probably just a little bit too smelly or something. We're not entirely sure. Ferrets are pretty unique in that they are incredibly smelly. They have a scent gland that oftentimes people remove when they breed them, but that scent gland helps them know when another ferret's around or who that ferret is. It's their way of communicating to each other. So ferrets were actually domesticated not as pets. She's so excited to see you guys. Not as pets, but actually as hunting animals. So some of you may have parents that go hunting. Way back when, people in Europe would go hunting for rabbits, and these guys were used to hunt rabbits. They are carnivores, which means they only eat meat, and they're really, really, really good hunters because of that. Their long, slender bodies made them go into rabbit burrows really easily, and they really like to be burrowed up too. So they were really, really good at flushing out those animals for hunting. But since they're super personable and very friendly, people decided they would make really good pets. So they have since become kind of really popular pets. They can be good pets too, but they're really smart. So you have to be careful if you're gonna get one as a pet that they need constant attention, just like a little puppy.
Somebody asks what she eats.
Ooh, that's a great question. So like I said, she's a carnivore. We don't feed her rabbits though, because she doesn't need to hunt. We usually give her a ferret kibble. It's a nice little, she's very excited to lick me. Do I taste good? It's a very nutrient-filled kibble, kind of like how you give your dogs and cats. We'll also give her treats like vitamin paste or mealworms. She really likes mealworms and superworms as well. But those are treats. What she eats every day is just the kibble.
Somebody asked how old she is. She's about 4 years old.
About
Her
4.
friend is about 2 years old. A ferret can live to be about 8. So she's like middle-aged.
She's a middle-aged lady, which is fine. Hopefully we'll have her for a long time as well, since she is super feisty. So ferrets, you may see some of them are white. That's because humans have bred them to be white, kind of like how we bred dogs to be all sorts of different colors as well. She is what's called a wild type or a normal type. This is what they would have looked like roughly in the wild, but they can come in dark black, white, gray, all sorts of different colors as well. But she looks pretty normal for her.
Somebody asked omnivore or carnivores. Ferrets are carnivores in the wild. So
yes,
they need meat to survive.
Yes, omnivores means they eat everything, both protein and plants. Carnivores will only eat meat. Herbivores only eat plants. Lots of fun words today. So yeah, she doesn't eat too much meat in captivity because look at her, she's a little chunky.
All right, we'll go ahead and put her away and meet our last animal out here, and then we will take you guys to one of the enclosures here at the zoo to meet some other animals.
She's very friendly. She does love it when she does programs. Unfortunately, like I said, she's one of those animals that is very susceptible to COVID, so we don't use her very often, which makes you guys very, very, very extra lucky that you get to see her, because most people don't, even during educational programs.
What kind of noises do ferrets make? That's a good question. They do kind of, it's kind of like a chuckling sound almost. And they really only vocalize when they're really excited. When ferrets are really excited, they'll actually do what they call a dance.
Yeah.
And it's really cute. They kind of arch their back and bounce around, and they'll kind of be like, and that's pretty much the only noise they make, but it is adorable. All right, and we saved our biggest one for last.
So this one is also a slinky fellow, but it's not a mammal like Scotty. It's also much heavier and a little bit more. There we go. There we go. I got her. She's good. She's just heavy.
All right.
Very awkward. So this is Rosie. She is a red-tailed boa, also called a common boa, also called a boa constrictor. We at the zoo like to call them boa constrictors because that's their scientific name. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I need to work out a little more. She is a little bit heavy. Not as heavy as she looks. She weighs
14
pounds? Yeah, 14 pounds, and she's about 14 too, isn't she?
She's 14 years old and 14 pounds.
14
But
years
she's
old,
a very
14 pounds.
awkward 14 pounds.
She is an awkward 14 pounds, and that's because she's about 7 feet long. So it's a 14 pounds that's spread out on a much wider area than you would, hope from something that's 14 pounds. There we go. That's a little more comfortable. All right. She's a little awkward. So she's gorgeous, though. I love Rosie. Her story is she is an ex-pet as well. The people who owned her previously weren't able to take care of her anymore. The kids went off to college and couldn't take them to the dorms kind of thing. So they asked if we could take care of her. And of course we said yes, since we love her. She's getting very adventurous, so Hope is going to follow her. Sorry if you get a strange shot of me, but we kind of just let them do what they need to do. We don't want to force them to do anything they don't want to do. So her most important thing is to stay comfortable.
And someone asked, what does she eat?
That's a great question. So she is a carnivore as well. You guys remember what that means? She only eats meat. However, since these guys are not as common as pets and they're not domesticated, they don't have a kibble. So we'll actually feed her whole animals. She really, really likes rats. Although some people, if they have these guys in captivity, will feed them chickens, quail, rabbits, stuff like that. But we mostly just feed them frozen rats that we buy from the pet store. So if you look at her, she is also really good at camouflaging. Usually this nice brown coloration with spots like this is really good at camouflage. In the wild, she tends to live on the ground. Some snakes like to live in trees, like tree boas, but these guys do not. They tend to live on the ground a little more than that, in burrows and stuff like that. So she's a boa. There's another kind of really big constrictor snake that you may hear about called a python. They're a little bit different, and I really love to talk about it because I love snakes. So pythons only live in what's called the Old World, which is basically Africa, Europe, and Asia. Boas live in both. So you'll find these guys in Africa, Europe, or not Europe, in Africa, Asia, but also in North and South America, mostly around the foresty areas, so mostly South America. But you can find them sometimes in North America too, in the southern foresty bits in Florida, mainly. But these guys are New World only. They're also different from pythons because they are what's called ovoviviparous. That is a really big word. When you think of reptiles, you think, oh, they lay eggs. And that's true. These guys do lay eggs, but their eggs will actually hatch in their bodies. So they'll give birth to what appears to be live young, which is very weird when you think about a reptile giving birth to live young. That's another thing that makes these guys different from pythons.
Somebody asked how old she is. She's 14 years old.
14 years old.
They can live to be about up to 30. So again, she's kind of middle-aged. And then she is a girl. Someone asked boy or girl.
She is a girl, yes. So snakes, if you want to look at her rear end, they look the same if they're boys or girls. There's really no way to tell the difference. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can go to the vet and you can have an exam done, or you can get a blood test. And what probably happened was she got a blood test and they determined that she was a girl. But we know she's a girl, which is cool because I like knowing when our animals are boys or girls. You don't always know when you have animals.
Any questions about her before we do our next little segment?
I have a question for you guys, though. Where do you think her tail starts?
Ooh.
Where does her body end? Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Where does her body end and her tail start? Is she all tail? Does she have no tail at all? Hope, do you want to point to where her tail starts?
Yeah, so her tail is actually, let me take a look. I know, I'm very rude. I'm very rude. It's actually just these last few inches here. So her tail starts about right there.
So they're not all tail, actually. They're all body. And pretty much the only bones she has in her body are skull bones, spine bones, and rib bones. She's a big old abdomen.
Somebody asked, is she venomous?
Great question. So there's two kinds of snakes. There's venomous and non-venomous. She is a non-venomous. I probably wouldn't be doing this if she was venomous. Unlike tarantulas, big snakes' venom is a little bit more difficult to handle if you get bit. So she's a constrictor. Usually if a snake isn't venomous, it's a constrictor. It's usually one or the other. She is obviously a constrictor. And if you look at her, you can see she's really thick. All of that is muscle. So she's very, very, very strong. And when an animal constricts their prey, they're not actually crushing it, even though she really could if she wanted to. What they're doing is they're squeezing really tight, like a really, really, really big hug. And then as they exhale, they squeeze tighter. And with every breath, they squeeze tighter and tighter, and eventually they'll suffocate their prey. It's a little bit gross for the young ones, but it's pretty fun for the old ones to know that. So she is all muscle, and she's gorgeous.
Somebody asked, is she fully grown? Fun fact about snakes, their bones don't fuse in the same way ours do. So they kind of keep growing a little bit their whole life, but their growth rate slows down a lot as they get older. So she probably won't get much bigger.
Not much.
But she's not the biggest this species of snake can get. So
No.
a really big specimen of a boa constrictor could get to be like 12 feet long and maybe up to 50 pounds. But she's more of kind of an average, maybe even a little on the small side.
So as she grows, she might get a bit bigger, but we're not hoping that gets much bigger. She's a little, almost too much for one person to handle right now.
How long was she when she was a baby? From what her previous owner told me, she was about 12 inches long when she was itty bitty. So she's about a foot long.
When they're born, though, they're about this long.
All right, we'll go ahead and put her away, and then we will do a very short walk right down to our primate exhibit so you guys can get closer to them.
Sometimes it's hard to put her away because she likes to grab on. Like I said, she's really strong, which is why you kind of need to be a strong person to work with them. There we go. She did not want to get put away.
Ooh, does everyone know what a primate is?
Does anyone know what a primate is?
A kind of monkey.
Yeah.
A monkey is a kind of primate, but not all primates are monkeys. So as we walk, I'll tell you. The animals that are primates include monkeys, apes, lemurs, tamarins, and humans, amongst others as well. So those are the main kinds. So the ones we are going to show you are monkeys, and they're monkeys that are native to the Americas. So mostly South America, but sometimes you can see some of them in North America too. Please back here. Do you have any questions while we're walking?
All right. I will go ahead and radio our keeper to let them out if they're not already. Oh, perfect.
What is the monkey's name?
What? Say that again?
What is the monkey's name? We will show you the ones that we have in this area of the zoo and go over all of that. We're going to climb a fence.
To you, everybody. So I'm going to hop this fence. Don't do this if you're at a zoo. This is only for keepers.
All right. I'm going to awkwardly climb the fence while holding the phone. A little stuck. Grab my phone really quick. My
We are not acrobats here at the zoo. We're just keepers. All right. So like the first ones we have out are some of the capuchins. So we have a weeper and a tufted capuchin. Down here, this is Rusty. He's the weeper. And over here is Ellie. She's the tufted capuchin. You can see on her head, it looks like she has two little tufts of hair. That's where they get the name from. So she's not hurt. She likes to do this because she knows she gets attention when she pretends like she's got a hurt arm. But I promise you, she's fine. Ellie was born in, we think, 1995, which makes her actually a year older than me. She's 25 or 26, I guess. These guys were both I believe ex-pets. Rusty was from the Bay Area, and Ellie is from Kentucky. So they're very excited. Their keeper must be in there with food. Capuchin monkeys don't make great pets. No monkeys do because they're incredibly intelligent. It's like having a toddler in your house all the time, and they can fight.
We'll keep talking about capuchins, but we'll move to some that are outside.
So that's why we have all of our guys, because they didn't do well in a home as they do well here. This is Lou. He's one of my favorites. He's what's called a white face, right? A white-faced capuchin monkey. They're pretty common in Central America, and they live in large troops of up to like 30, I think. These guys are one of the smartest kinds of monkeys in the Americas. And some
computer.
What did you say?
I am on my brother's computer.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Some populations of these monkeys have actually started using tools, which is really, really smart. That's very special that they can do that, because previously we only thought that we could use tools, but now we know they can, which means they're smarter than we thought.
And white-faced capuchins have actually been seen using plants as medicine on their skin, which is super, super cool.
So you see Lou here, he's kind of an older dude. He doesn't have teeth. He maybe has a couple of teeth, but he doesn't really have many teeth. And that's because he was also someone's pet, but they didn't want him to bite them, so they took their teeth out, which is not very nice. So he lives with us, where he gets to have plenty of alone time. And up there, I don't know if you can see her, is his friend Michaela. She is another tufted capuchin. So these guys are one of the most common monkeys you'll see in movies, mostly because they're really, really smart. Also, they're really, really cute, and they're kind of small, so they're easy to carry around and train. So if you watch different movies, like, I don't know if you guys are too young for this, but Night at the Museum, Doolittle,
Pirates of the Caribbean.
They all have capuchin monkeys. They're usually white-faced capuchins like Lou here, or tufted ones like Michaela.
We're getting questions about what he's eating and if they eat insects.
That's a great question. So capuchin monkeys are omnivorous. He is eating a cantaloupe, which is a nice soft fruit, which is great for somebody who doesn't have teeth. He loves his fruit. So, but they also eat plants like leaves, and in a while they'll also eat other animals. Some species of capuchin monkeys have actually started hunting other animals for food as well, although that's pretty rare. Usually they'll just eat grubs and invertebrates that they find around, but they'll eat omnivorous things. Here comes Michaela.
Right there.
You got some food, Michaela?
Yep. So lots of questions about names. So this is Michaela. Lou is the white-faced, and then the two we saw before were Rusty and Ellie.
Mm-hmm. Michaela also loves attention, so she likes to come say hi. All right. These guys definitely all have a personality of their own, which is why they're one of my favorite ones to talk about. I think this one's Baby, right? Yeah. This is Baby. He is also a weeper capuchin. And you can see he's losing a lot of his fur. He's an old dude. He was born in 1988. If anybody wants to do the math, that's 33 years old. So he's an old guy. That's roughly around their life expectancy is in the 20s. So he's an old dude, but you can see he's still chipper and spry and is able to climb perfectly well. A cool thing that you can see if you look very closely on Baby is they have what's called prehensile tails. So a prehensile tail is basically something that can grab onto other things. It's like a fifth limb or a third hand or whatnot. And prehensile tails are specific to New World monkeys. So capuchins, spider monkeys, howler monkeys, the monkeys that live in Asia and Africa don't have a prehensile tail because they tend to live on the ground more than in the trees.
Why is he losing his fur?
He's old. You know, sometimes if you have grandmas and grandpas who don't have as much hair as they used to, the same reason. He's just a little old.
All right.
We still think he's handsome though.
I think our lemurs came out, so let's go take a look at them because they are also super fun. There's Rusty again.
Hello, Rusty.
Right, here we go.
There we go.
Oh, coming right up.
They're very interesting. So he is a ringtail lemur, as you can tell by his tail, which has rings on it. Oh, listen to that. So if he shows you his teeth, you can see a really cool feature of lemurs. So lemurs are incredibly social creatures, and they live in groups all the time. And what they like to do to bond with each other is they'll groom each other. Just very excited to see you guys. So on their teeth, they actually have a special kind of teeth. It looks like a comb, and they use that to groom each other. You'll also see him kind of hug his tail. He's getting the scent from his tail, so you can kind of smell him and know that he's going around. So we have quite a few lemurs here at the zoo. Most of them are ringtails, since they're pretty common species of lemurs as far as I'm concerned. But we do have different kinds as well. This is Leah. She is fantastic. She is a brown lemur, also called a true lemur, and they're much more endangered than ringtails. All of them are vulnerable to predation and habitat loss, but she even more so. So here's a fun fact that some of you may know. Oh, can you hear her? I'll be quiet for a second. Leah, come back.
Don't touch me.
All right, so all lemurs are from Madagascar, which is a small island off the coast of Africa on the east side. And all lemurs of every kind is from there. Ringtails, true lemurs, bush babies, they're all from
My brother said he needs something pink. I don't know what it is. So
He's
I'm
eating
getting
an
so
apple.
sick.
He's got a piece of apple. So these guys are omnivores as well, but they definitely eat much more fruit than insects. They love their fruits. And sometimes in the wild, they'll also eat flowers, which means they pollinate a little bit too.
And we only have a couple more minutes, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. Do you guys have any final questions? Go ahead and put them in the chat for us.
Yeah. Everyone's very interested to see you guys. This is a treat. Leah is usually asleep. She doesn't like to come out of her hide very often, so you guys are pretty lucky you get to see her.
Probably enjoying the sunshine
She
after
is.
the cold last week.
She's telling us how happy she is.
I'm gonna finish this and then go get my book to the library.
All right.
Any questions?
Do they like veggies and fruit?
What?
Yes, they really love their fruit. And then some types of lemurs like Leah, they'll tend to eat a little more nectar and things like that too. Because they know how to open doors. No, they don't know how to open doors. They are very smart, but they don't quite know how to do.
Boxes. How do they know how to open doors?
They don't know how to open doors. I think I heard someone say something about boxes. You guys might have noticed there are cardboard boxes and paper bags in their enclosures. What we like to do is put their food in there, so they have to kind of forage and work for it a little bit. We call that enrichment. All right.
Once my family saw a ring-tailed cat in our backyard.
I love ring-tailed cats. They are super cool. How did the animals survive the freeze? That's a great question. We were really worried about them. Thankfully, we did not lose any power here at the zoo. So you might have seen earlier when we were looking at Rusty and Ellie's enclosure, they ran through that little door inside. All of our animals have access to an inside portion of their enclosure that's heated and is essentially a space for them to warm up. So we never make our animals stay outside if they don't want to. So thankfully, they all had a warm spot to go in. And then we provided extra heat in some places as well. Thanks for asking. I'm so glad you were concerned about that. Well, thanks so much, guys. If you have any other questions, feel free to email us at education@austinzoo.org, and I would be happy to answer your questions. But that is all the time we had. So thanks so much, guys.